Hello, my name is Paul. When I was a kid, I fell in love with my dad's young wife. Then they got divorced, and I grew up, and I was sure that we could finally be together. But she used me, and then dumped me, for my dad. My parents divorced when I was 10, but they managed to stay in a good relationship with each other, so that my life barely changed. I mean, I spent half of my week with my mum, and the other half at my dad's new place. A couple of years later, he got married for a second time. Lily was very young, so I can't actually call her my stepmom. She was more like an adult good friend of mine. We had so much fun together, playing video games or watching TV. Gosh, she even convinced my dad to buy me the puppy that I always wanted. It's no wonder that at some point, when my teenage years began approaching, and apparently my hormones began raging, I started feeling an attraction towards Lily. I couldn't help but think about her all the time. I wanted to spend every second with her, so that whenever she was cooking, for example, I would just rush into the kitchen to help her, or whenever she went to the mall to do some shopping, I would join her, saying that I'd be the one who carries the packages. But what's more, I began feeling jealousy towards my dad. Anytime he hugged Lily, or kissed her, I felt like I was angry with him, and I'd look away. I remember once, on Mother's Day, my dad and I agreed to bake a cake for Lily. She seemed to be really happy when we gave it to her, but suddenly my dad pulled a necklace from his pocket. I felt so insulted deep inside that I couldn't give her anything valuable. I rushed to my room, threw myself on the bed, and began beating the pillow so hard that the feathers scattered everywhere. Then, my dad and Lily were about to leave for a month-long trip to Scotland, which she'd been dreaming about for a long time. I was so devastated that I wouldn't be able to see the love of my life for such a long time. But what's more, I was so angry at my dad that he was taking her from me. I got so furious that when my mum brought me our landline phone, saying that he was calling to find out what I wanted him to bring me from there, I refused to talk to him. Of course, nobody understood what was happening with me back then, and I made my mind up not to tell anybody about my feelings. And then, things sort of got better. I don't know, maybe it was because that out of sight, out of mind thing really worked? Or it was because we had a new girl in our class, Robin, who apparently really liked me. I started getting over my feelings for Lily, and even stopped having dreams about her at night. Robin and I began hanging out together, and I noticed that I was no longer angry with my dad. And then, when the time came for the two of them to come back home from their little vacation, my dad returned alone. It turned out that Lily liked Scotland so much that she decided to stay. Well, he couldn't because of his work and everything. They managed to keep their long-distance marriage going for almost 6 months, but then they eventually divorced. Obviously, Lily and I no longer socialized, but I still followed her on social media, and I saw that she was doing great in Scotland, while I was happy enough with Robin. Of course, my girlfriend never found out anything about my crush on my dad's wife. Actually, our relationship had grown to a serious stage where we were about to graduate from school and had already started planning to go to the same college together. So one day, we were walking around in the city when I suddenly noticed Lily across the street. She stopped in front of the window of one of the shops, and I felt a strange feeling, you know? Similar to what you usually feel when you're riding a roller coaster. I couldn't believe that after this many years, I once again saw her, and I just felt the need to come up and say, hi? Gosh, she was so happy to see me, and we hugged, and I couldn't help but tell her that she'd become even more beautiful than she used to be. We had a brief chat, and we agreed to grab lunch the next day, and then she just walked away, because she had some errands to do. I was standing there with this feeling that wings had grown on my back, when I suddenly heard Robin call my name. Clearly, I got a bit distracted with my feelings when I noticed Lily, so that I rushed across the street where I left Robin with no explanation. She just kept standing where I left her. And judging by the way she looked at me, and by her arms folded across her chest, I brought a world of trouble onto myself. Apparently, during the time I was talking to my ex-stepmom, my girlfriend was boiling from jealousy, because she didn't have a clue who that young woman was. Even though I apologized to her like a million times, and explained everything to her. From then on, I saw that she didn't like it when I talked about Lily. Anyway, the next day, Lily and I had lunch together, as it was agreed. And I just couldn't stop looking at her when she was telling me everything about her life in Scotland. Of course, I told Robin about where I went, and I even kind of promised that our lunch would hardly take more than a couple hours. Nevertheless, she just kept texting me, like, every 20 minutes, asking how everything was going. So much so that eventually my cell phone battery died. After we were done with our food, Lily asked me to help her do some shopping, just like old times, and I couldn't turn her down. So we went to the mall and spent a couple more hours there. When she finally drove me home, Robin was waiting for me there. And believe me, guys, she had never been so pissed off before. She kept yelling and crying, saying that she was terribly worried about me. But I had a feeling that the main problem was Lily. Or rather, in the fact that Robin knew that I was with her during that whole time. Once again, I started calming my girlfriend down and explaining myself. I started to have doubts about whether I really wanted to continue this toxic relationship at all. Later on, since my ex-stepmom and I kept texting each other, and I really wanted to keep socializing with her, I had no other option but to hide this from Robin. No, I mean it. I even changed the way Lily was signed into my phone book to Leo. And any time I received texts from her, when I was with Robin, I had to lie to my girlfriend and say there was an old friend of mine texting. And whenever Leo called me, I had to reject the call. Apparently, at some point, my behaviour became really suspicious. Because one day, Robin decided to call this Leo from her own cell. When a woman picked up the phone, Robin slapped me in the face and walked away. Since Lily was a girl, obviously, and a friend of mine, she was the one I could ask for advice about Robin. So when that happened, I didn't know what to do. I called Lily and she invited me to her place. We were talking, sitting on the couch, and she was so kind when she was explaining my mistakes to me, without, making me feel stupid or something. And then we began laughing a lot. Suddenly, something went wrong with the electricity, and the lights went out, and Lily had to light a few candles. I don't know. I was really upset, and she was so comforting and so beautiful, wearing shorts and a guy's t-shirt. And I kissed her. I'd been dreaming about that kiss since I was 14. And now, both of us were grown up and single, and she was no longer my stepmom, so I didn't really think that we'd done anything wrong. A small part of me was afraid that she'd push me away. But when that didn't happen, I felt like I was on top of the world. That's how we sort of began our relationship. Of course, I was trying to hide the fact that I was somehow socializing with Lily from my mum and dad. But the more time we spent together in her apartment, the less I wanted to be without her. It was the best month of my life. But the time was approaching for me to leave for college. I was desperate, because the college of my dreams was situated literally across the whole country. I'd always wanted to become an architect, and studying there would give me lots of opportunities for my future job. But I loved Lily so much that I could barely breathe without her. After much thought and hesitation, I decided to switch to another college that was located in our city. There was architecture there, but I thought that journalism would also be interesting. So, when I got the response that they accepted me, I decided to surprise Lily and went straight to her place without warning her. You see, I thought she'd be glad that we could be together. But as soon as I approached her apartment building, I saw my dad walking out of it. I unintentionally hid behind the corner, and my heart started beating so hard. I tried to convince myself that it was a mere coincidence, and I even peeped out to make sure that that man was really my dad. And it was. And as soon as he walked away far enough, I rushed inside. I flew up the stairs, barely touching the steps, and banged on that familiar door. Up until the last moment, I was hoping that I was overreacting. But when Lily opened the door, asking whether I'd forgotten something, I understood that I was right. She thought that my dad had returned, but as soon as she saw me instead, she changed her face. I won't bother you with the details of how hysterical I got back then, when she told me that she and my dad had decided to get back together again. And I won't tell you how humiliating and unfair everything was. I was devastated. Of course, I went to my architecture college, aiming to be as far from Lily as I possibly could be. And I haven't socialized with her since. It's been a few months already since she and my dad got back together. And he still knows nothing about my summer with her.